Yellow.
This.
You wanted the older ones? You wanted the older one?
Person.
No, this guy's. Oh, yeah?
That's the fact I went to the item for all days. My magnifying glass. Just
My computer says 7, so. Good evening. Welcome to the November 8th East Hempfield Township Planning Commission. First order of business is to stand and join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There's no comma there. I'll get you guys to say it right yet.
All right, second item on the agenda is the approval of the October 11th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
I recommend approval of the October minutes.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Boltby and a second by Mr. Caldis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain.
2 abstentions. 5-0-2. All right. Before we begin, I also would like to recognize that Mr. Spangler and Mr. Rush are both going to be voting members tonight in lieu of being alternates. So the first action item we have is 283 Commerce Hub final plan.
Hey there, folks. My name is Jeremy Bidnier, and I'm with Landwork Civil Design. I can yell louder. So we were back here, I believe it was in March, we got the conditional approval. We've been working through some logistics with the construction and the final wall design. That created one more waiver that we were here asking for tonight, as well as working through the landscaping on the western part of our property, or Plan West. We're gonna utilize some existing vegetation and enhance it rather than just cut down all the trees and plant new trees, which doesn't make a lot of sense to us. I don't think it makes sense to your engineer as well. So we're gonna try to utilize as much as we can, but still enhance the buffer. And then the last 2 waivers we were here to talk about was sidewalk and curbing. We are gonna provide it along the township road, but through discussions with PennDOT prefers not to have curbing or sidewalk along their road, so asking for a waiver along the Spooky Nook portion of our property along that frontage. But happy to answer any questions, and I did bring a couple plans here with Nate if we want to talk about any of the waivers specifically.
Question.
Go ahead, Stacy.
And forgive me, because I'm still learning all the ordinances. But is there a possibility of bike lanes at all in this area?
Don't have any real plans for that.
Okay, I just wanted to throw it out there because it does seem like there are a lot of bicycle users in that area. And with the increase in truck traffic, it might be something worth thinking about.
Does anybody else on the planning commission have any questions regarding the modifications? Anybody in the audience? Is there, wait, is there anybody online also?
No, there's
Okay. You want to go ahead and go over? Is there anything else you want to go over?
No, just the 4 waivers.
Just. There's no questions on any of the current modifications or waivers? Right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of modification requests 1, 3, and 4 and conditional approval of number 2, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Boltby and a second by Mrs. Byrne. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to our second item, U-Haul revised final plan. Waivers, modifications, and then the final plan itself.
Good evening, Claudia Shank, attorney with McNeese, Wallace and Norick. I'm here this evening on behalf of Americo Real Estate Company. We're here before you tonight with a revised final plan for our project located along 283. We're just before you a few months ago for approval of some waivers and modifications and the initial plan for this project, which was recently recorded. We are back now with a revised final plan. The reason for that is when we got out in the field and we're starting to get ready to undertake construction, we discovered that there was a PP&L right away on the property that had not been previously picked up on the survey. So it was not incorporated in the land development plan or reflected in the design. So we coordinated with your township engineer in terms of the approach for dealing with this. There is a portion of a parking area that is on our property within the easement. And you can see the easement on the screen. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of the plan. See if I can point to it here. Running right along here. So there is a parking area that is within that easement. We're working with PP&L now to work on an encroachment agreement to allow for that. They do allow some paving and some minor landscaping within their easement. The more significant problem was that a small corner of our building was actually within the easement as well. It was about 15 feet into the easement. So the main change on this revised final plan is to relocate the building, move it so that it's entirely out of that PP&L easement, and then also to show the PP&L right away on the plan because your engineer felt that that should be reflected as well on the plans. There's some grading changes as well. Those have been reviewed by Scott. We are in receipt of his most recent review letter, dated today's date, November 8th. It's a very clean letter. So we're just seeking approval of the revised final plan this evening. There are no additional waivers or modifications associated with this revised plan. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
I'll first of all say the last time they were here, I had a few comments on grading and I appreciate the changes to fix them. I noticed that, but I have no questions.
So down at the bottom where you have the parking area, is there also a water drainage management area there at the bottom? Just because from historical perspective, a lot of water runoff is there, even where it is now. I mean,
I don't believe there are any stormwater facilities located in that area.
saying that's, if they're gonna put macadam on that, there's a lot of water runoff in that little swallow area. Having lived here 50 years, that's.
Yeah, I think that's been redirected in the project site and dealt with.
Paul Navarro, Navarro and Wright Engineers. Yeah, the way that the site has been graded, we were intercepting a lot of that water that was tributary to that swale. That swale was created actually with some of the improvements to the ramp that were recently done by PennDOT. But it's going to be an improved condition there as far as stormwater is concerned.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the planning?
Is that an
commission?
underground line or overhead?
Overhead.
Is there like a tower structure there within?
There are poles, but the poles are not in the area where the parking is located.
Okay. Do you have the encroachment agreement from PP&L approval? Do you have that yet?
We're working on it now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dan, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right,
What's the distance from the building from the nearest pole?
Do you know the answer to that, Paul?
Yeah, it's actually 60-foot wide.
Yeah.
It's 30 on each side of the pole.
But the pole,
Located corner of the building, about 3 feet outside of the road. We're not really construction foundation.
that's the right of way itself. I don't know if we have a distance specific to the closest pole.
The reason why I ask is I'm in a similar situation where we have to have a structure 25 feet away from the right of way closest to the structure. So if there's a pole there, like the building has to be 25 feet away from the edge of the right of way line. I just didn't, I can't tell here. I can see the pole, but I'm assuming it's further away from that.
Yeah, we've had some preliminary discussions with PPNL and it seems
Okay.
like we're moving in the right direction, but obviously everything that we're showing within their right of way is going to be subject to their approval.
Okay.
Yeah, the pole nearest the building is in front of the parking area. Looking to get PPNL to approve the paving under the power line. And it's, just looking at the scale here, it's over 50 feet.
Okay, just making sure. I could see the pole on this drawing here. I just can't see that where the next one is. See the one in the right-hand corner. Just making sure you don't have to come back a second time, that's all, or third time, that's all.
all right. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the revised final land development plan for the U-Haul, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second that.
Can we make that upon approval of PPNL's encroachment as well? Agreement,
Absolutely. And that may actually be
be
in
part of
the
it?
David Miller associate letter. But sure, we can amend that to include getting the PPL approval.
That's fine. We have no intention to record the plan until we have that approval in case,
Yeah.
you know, as Mr. Rush notes, there would need to be additional adjustments.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Byrne and was it Matt, did you do that? Matt by Mr. Polakowski, to recommend approval of the revised final plan for the U-Haul project, subject to all staff and engineering review comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, the next item on the agenda is 2532 Marietta Avenue, final plan.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Upso with the LA Group. And with me tonight is Don Herman, the property owner and applicant. You may have seen this a couple times before. Last year, we had this site rezone. And we submitted this sketch plan that was pretty much the exact same plan at that time. And we submitted a sketch plan, the official sketch plan in the spring that was, again, pretty much the same plan. It's been revised a little bit just to work with the stormwater and the specific township requirements. The existing site, you can tell, is between Marietta Avenue and Route 30. It's just under 5 acres in size. And there's an existing residence and a garage on the site. So they will remain and be parceled off into a separate lot that's going to be about 3/4 of an acre. The proposed site that we have here, we're proposing to construct access drive from Marietta Avenue that's directly across from Pin Oak Drive that goes down to the road, and the roads are all going to be private. And on either side of the road are turnarounds. There's going to be some on-street parking, but the on-street parking will not be allowed in those turnaround areas. It's going to be signed to restrict that. When we discussed this plan with the township supervisors early on, we plan to keep the original access drive to the residents. And they asked that we provide a secondary emergency access through that site. So we have that, we have a connection. It's going to be a stabilized paver, so it's going to look like grass, but it's going to be a stabilized paver underneath it that can support the fire trucks. And what we're proposing is that 3 townhouse buildings with 6 townhouses in each, and then a separate building with 2 semi-detached units for a total of 14 new housing units. What we're allowed is 4 dwelling units per acre, and we're going to be at 3.5 units per acre. When we go to the grading plan, you can see that there's not room for any more on this site with the slopes and with all the stormwater requirements. We're pretty maxed out with what we can do here. And on that plan, you can see the stormwater facilities down towards Route 30. We're going to have some buffer plantings that were not required by the township, but the owner obviously wanted to put them in to buffer Route 30 from the residences. We're also going to have street trees and street lighting. And the site will be maintained by a homeowners association and served with public sewer and water. For the traffic, for this total site with the 15 units, we're going to have about 64 average daily trips. 3 of them that will be in the peak AM hour and 3 in the peak PM hour. We've had 3 plan reviews by the township engineer, and we pretty much nailed down all the stormwater and the design requirements. So there shouldn't be any more changes to this plan. Right now, we're waiting on the ENS and NPDS approval. And the sewer and water approvals, we're still working on them and all the agreements that we need, along with the letter of credit. So they're the outside things that we still need for this approval. And with this, we're going to need a few modifications. We had the modification to go to preliminary plan was approved when we did the sketch plan in the summer or in the spring. And with this, we're going to need 4 land development modifications and 3 stormwater modifications. Are there any questions at this time?
Couple quick questions.
Yep.
Refuse collection. What's your proposal? How is they doing trash? And then the second question would be United States Postal Service approval, and how is the mailbox or collection area being designed?
So with the trash, it's going to be individual cans that will be put out to the curb. There's not going to be a central collection facility.
Okay.
And with the post office, we're going to provide a box in the middle, like right when you come down the access drive. And we did get the approval for the street name and all that stuff from the postal service.
Okay.
Mike, what did you say the traffic rate would be there in the morning time again?
About 3.
Okay.
Yeah. During the peak hour, 3 trips. Same with the evening.
Any other questions on the plan? Before, Mike, do you want to go over the modifications?
Yeah, the first one that we're looking for is section 222-5.3.A6, the beauty strip between the sidewalk and the parking and the on-street parking. So where we have the on-street parking wasn't required because we are providing parking in the driveways and garages, but the applicant thought that on-street parking would be good for visitors to alleviate any congestion. So we're proposing to have the sidewalk right up against the parking spaces so people can step directly onto the sidewalk. A 3-foot 7-inch strip is required. And if we had that in on the ones to the left, we're getting kind of tight against the existing garage there. So we wouldn't be able to provide the 5-foot space between the property line and the sidewalk. So one of the reasons that we're looking for this is because it will be a private street. It's not gonna be a public street.
And most people parking there are gonna be going to the units themselves. And getting out on the driver's side or passenger side into a grass strip is not
Yeah. true.
great.
Yeah, and especially if you're cleaning off the sidewalk and putting the snow there.
It's, yeah.
What space are you offering from the face of the garage to the sidewalk? So if somebody tried to park in the driveway, do they have enough space without overhanging the sidewalk?
Yeah, so it's 20 feet. That was a
Okay.
comment from the township engineer, and we adjusted the plan to accommodate that.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, you talked about the street with all the traffic that's on Marietta right now. Is there plans for a turning lane into there?
No, there is not. So we're going through the PennDOT requirements now, and with this amount of traffic, it doesn't require that. So the next modification we're looking for is section 222-6.6.c, curb, sidewalk, and pavement widening on Marietta Avenue. So we're looking for a deferral of this requirement. We're working on the agreement at this time, and in the future, if there is a project that would be consolidated with providing curb and sidewalk along Marietta Avenue, the property owner at that time would pay for those improvements. The next one is section 265-7.2, environmental impact study. We did provide a summary of the environmental requirements, and some of the things that were actually studied that are required are the traffic, the wetlands, the geotech. So we did do some of those studies, but some of them that deal with the environmental pollution and stuff like that would be more for like an industrial or commercial site that would be manufacturing stuff, not really for a residential site. So that's why we base that modification on that requirement. And section 265-8.4.A1B, sidewalk on both sides of the street. So we're requesting this to only provide sidewalk on one side of the access drive. So this would line up with Pin Oak Drive. So it would channelize the pedestrian traffic down into the site before they cross the access drive. So it wouldn't be at the top of the street where it would interfere with the cars that would be trying to exit or enter the site. But in the future, if sidewalk were installed along Marietta Avenue, we would have a crosswalk up there. And then the other three are stormwater requirements. And it's basically because of the amount of infiltration on the site that we had to do an alternate requirement to meet DEP's standards. So one is volume control. The bottom slope of the basin is more flat, so it will be go through the BMP amended soils. And the swale design for side slopes, we're putting it at 3-to-1 instead of something I'm sorry, we are doing it at, or 3-to-1's a requirement, and we're doing it steeper than that, but it's only a 2-foot swale. So it wouldn't be significantly impacting anything. Excuse me. So they're basically all the modifications that we're looking for tonight.
Anybody have any questions regarding the modifications that Mike outlined?
So what would trigger the sidewalks on Marietta?
That if there was a regional project that would add sidewalks.
For the
then we
whole
call on
length?
These deferrals or
So if they were, if the sidewalks came onto the or would be encroaching on this property, then they would have to, that would trigger them to install on the, okay.
what
That
we
would
don't
also
want
re-
is a patchwork network of sidewalks.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
nothing connecting them.
That would also be a PennDOT approval for the sidewalks.
okay. Marietta, all right, Marietta is a.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dan, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Anybody in the audience have any questions? I'm assuming there's nobody online that has any questions.
No.
All right. Then we will take this as the waivers modifications as one motion and the final land development plan is a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of modification requests 2 to 7 and conditional approval of modification 1, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion by Mrs. Byrne and a second by Mr. Boltby to recommend approval of modification request 2 to 7 and conditional approval of modification request number 1, subject to all staff and engineering review comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Great, thank you, everybody.
Oh, we still have your plan, Mike.
The plan just,
That was just the modifications, so you don't want to come back for that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the final land development plan for 2532 Marietta Avenue, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion by Mrs. Byrne and a second by Mr. Polakowski to recommend approval of the final land development plan for 2532 Marietta Avenue, subject to all staff and engineering review comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Now you're excused, Mike.
Thanks.
Good luck.
Good seeing you.
All right, our next action item is the Meadows Garden Mercantile Sketch Plan.
Steve Gergley, Harbor Engineering, here with Rob Fisher, Grace Book and Chantel Wenger from Roar Seeds. And this is a sketch plan for 543 Champ Boulevard. This site currently, it's 15 acres, it's in the community.
Excuse me, can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, the site's in the Community Business Center District. It's 543 Champ Boulevard, 15 acres in size. And it currently contains a Comfort Suites Hotel, which is the subject of a land development plan in 2015, and a farmhouse and some associated barns that had been up until recently used as the Chestnut Villa events venue. They had weddings there. That's since been recently discontinued, and the farmhouse is now occupied by Mr. Fisher and his family as their residents. There's 2 basins on the property, both of which were oversized when we did the land development plan a few years ago. So there's additional impervious surface allotted to them. And what's being proposed is Roar Seeds is proposing a small retail center to be called the Meadow Garden Mercantile. And it's a small retail space for the sale of plants and gardening supplies and accessories. So the buildings will be sort of shed size, will be very small, some small greenhouse structures and an enclosed area for display, and which is shown in this area just to the west of the existing parking area that serves the hotel. And the parking area for the hotel was overbuilt. We had accounted for future parking at the time of the land development plan. 80 parking spaces are required for the hotel. They also built the additional parking area when they did the hotel, so there's about 101 parking spaces. So when we file the land development plan, we'll document that we have sufficient parking for the retail use. Stormwater is already accounted for this use as well, but again, we'll document that when we do the land development plan. So it'll probably be sort of a seasonal business. It may not be open all year round. Maybe it may not be open every day of the week, but it's sort of a supplemental business for Roar Seeds, and it'll be operated by Mr. Fisher, who will live on the property. So we feel it's a good complementary, like additional business on this site. It fits as far as traffic displacement with the Chestnut Villa wedding event venue not continuing any longer. Some of the traffic associated with this minor retail use would be less than what was associated with the villa. And then the hotel will continue as it has been. We're asking for, this is just a sketch plan, so we're asking for a formal waiver of preliminary plan so we can move on to land development. That's recommended by your engineer. The only other thing I'll add is that when we did the land development plan for the hotel years ago, we did get a deferral for curbing and sidewalk along Spooky Nook Road, and the justification that the property to the north is still zoned agricultural. There's no way to connect to that. So we'll note that. I'm not sure that we'll need to ask for that again, but that was granted as a previous deferral for the site. Other than that, we're happy to answer any questions you have.
I will remind the planning commission that it is a sketch plan, so we take no action on the sketch plan, just on the modification. But you can ask any questions, provide any comments that you want on the proposed use.
Will these structures be permanent structures with foundations, or are they like shed? When you say shed style, are they?
Like prefabricated buildings, I'm sure they'll be set on foundations. So
Okay.
there's a good example of what they'll
Okay.
they'll most likely look like. Not exactly necessarily, but very similar to that. That would be the retail building.
Yeah, I see there's outdoor seating. Is there plans for like a restaurant in there at some point?
No, not at this time at all. This is just for just to create an atmosphere, I guess, places to sit. You may have some small events from time to time, but nothing's proposed as far as a restaurant goes.
These have electric?
It will have electric, yes. Electric, yeah.
Public sewer and public water?
To be determined. So there's no public water on the site. It's all served by the well, and the hotel has a cistern for fire suppression. The house is served by a septic system, and then the hotel has a grinder pump and a force main that goes down Champ Boulevard for connection. Because it's a seasonally operated business, we're going to confirm with the township sewage enforcement officer if they need to have sewer. The idea would be they'd maybe have one employee. It's all common use. The employees could use the restroom in the hotel, and then guests could use that as well. So that's the idea, but we'll confirm that at land development.
Will the greenhouses be permanent structures, or were they gonna be like hoop house kind of things?
They'll be permanent.
Actually, at this point,
Oh, okay. Okay.
Any other questions? Dan, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion for the modification to recommend approval of preliminary plan waiver.
Mr. Chair, I motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plan waiver request for the Meadow Garden Mercantile Project, subject to all staff and engineering comments.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr.
Second.
Pollock.
Second.
What?
I'm seconding.
Oh, Mr. Spangler already
I'm
did. He
sorry,
beat
I
you to
didn't
it.
hear you. No, you're, please too. I want to see your name in the minutes.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Polakowski in 2 seconds.
Maybe it is.
One by Mr. Spangler and an almost second by Mrs. Byrne. To
Second.
recommend approval of the preliminary plan waiver request for the Meadow Garden Mercantile Project, subject to all staff and engineering review comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 7-0, motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Timeline for opening this.
We'd like it to be March.
I'd like it to be March too. That'd be great.
Signing up.
Sounds good.
Have a good evening. All right, is there any old business?
There's not.
No old business. Project report was in. That was part of the link that you sent out. Did anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about the project report? All right, any public comment?
Everybody stand up.
Dan, you have any comments?
No.
All right, then we are adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Something to do while my kids are, it's looking up.
I know, Jeffrey.
You know,
Hmm?
did you say you know
My
him?
neighbor was happy with our.
Is he?
And so does one of my friends. And they're always talking about it, especially